Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Game of Thrones Overrated. This week we take a look at episode 7, You Win or You Die. Stu, what do you think of that statement? You win or you die when you play the Game of Thrones.
This episode isn't overrated.
Cancel the series, we're done. Explain
This
yourself.
episode's really good.
Yeah?
Except everything to do with Jon Snow.
Oh really? I actually quite like Jon Snow in it. I think he's quite... I like his journey.
I generally like Jon Snow. I just found this week's story completely pointless.
I think it's nice that he's taking a different route than what was expected, because he was wanting to be a ranger and now it turns out he's good enough to actually command, or at least that's what it seems like.
Is he?
Well, maybe don't get that information later on, but it seems
that's totally ambiguous.
He gets his pals together to stop bullying Sam. That's sort of a leadership thing to do.
Yeah, that was good in the episode that happened.
Yeah.
This episode, not so much.
Admittedly, is this another example of just bad exposition where someone just says, "Oh, you're a good leader"?
Well, basically, his journey in this episode, to some extent, undermines his journey in previous episodes, because he went through the whole thing of, I'm better than everyone, and Tyrion's like, you can't really go through your entire time in the Night's Watch telling everybody you're better than them. And then within about 2 scenes in this episode, it's like, I should be a ranger because I'm better than literally all of you at everything.
When someone has that kind of mindset, it's hard to get over that overnight, I think. So that's always going to be a residual thing, and he's always going to fall back a little bit. Which is why I like Sam in that episode, because he's like, no, calm down, don't be a dick. This is what's happening, and this is a good thing.
It's just, it feels like unnecessary repetition, considering that was the journey he went on in the last episode we saw him. We haven't seen him for 2 episodes, and now he's going on that same journey again. Yeah,
I suppose looking at the same vice or the same bit of story arc can be a bit boring after a while, but I still like the way they did it in this particular episode, because there comes a point where Jon Snow needs to do something quite big, because there is a lot of focus on him. So
is going to a tree big?
I mean the whole being a commander thing one day. The tree thing is a bit unnecessary, although I like
that's not doing a thing. That's a thing that might happen in the future.
They're very heavily hinting at it. They're outright saying it. They're saying he's going to be commander one day, which does happen. So it is some setup, and it is some we do get some payoff for later on, even if his choices for commanding are a bit debatable. Yeah,
it's better than Theon. Because we've got another episode, we've got another scene in this episode which established, did you know that Theon is a Greyjoy, not a Stark?
They really do lay it on thick with Leon? Theon. They're completely different things.
And he's a dick to another woman, so it's literally the same scene that we see with Theon every episode.
Yeah, pretty much. Although she does kind of talk back to him a little bit, but then so did the redheaded lady.
Yeah, Ros, who is now in King's Landing somehow.
Yeah, that was quick. This may be an early example of teleportation.
Oh, Westeros has teleportation. It's established now in this episode.
Story convenient teleportation devices.
Because Ros is now just in King's Landing with Littlefinger in a sex position scene that's totally fine.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I was worrying when I watched this scene. I was like, is this actually a good example of sex position? And it is, because it's Littlefinger showing an example of how much he likes to control people.
Well, also it's establishing his motivation for what he does in the final scene.
It does, doesn't it? It does set it up quite...
It literally gives you all his backstory explaining why he would do that at the end.
The one thing, and this is me giving criticism now, the one thing is, I feel like it sets up Littlefinger's portrayal a little bit too heavily, but then...
I don't think it does, because of the later scene where Littlefinger approaches Ned and is like, we could totally take over the kingdom right now.
Ah, okay.
And put Renly on the throne. Because my only note for that scene was he serious about that? Because obviously Ned turns him down. And obviously he might know Ned would turn him down. And obviously from that scene, he wanted to betray Ned. But at the same time, everything he says is basically true.
I guess so. So in a way, if he was planning on betraying him, maybe there was some part of him that was hoping that Ned would actually be a bit more smart about things, but instead, Ned just avoided his...
It would work out for Littlefinger if Ned took him up in the deals. Then Littlefinger would have been the one that got him and Renly into power.
Ah, yeah, so he's essentially...
So he's maybe playing both sides.
Essentially in control of... Basically, he's doing what the Lannisters do in every combat situation, in every single war, is side with the person who's winning.
Yeah.
And in this situation, it is most definitely the Lannisters.
That's the thing that's even talked about in later seasons, that when Tywin was aligned with the Targaryens. It's not that he particularly liked the Targaryens. He just knew he couldn't defeat them on his own.
Yes, which
and
is fair.
created a situation where he could defeat them.
Speaking of Tywin, how badass does he look when he's stripping the fucking boar and laying into Jaime?
I just love the symbolism of the fact that it's a stag.
Yeah. I love the fact that he's getting his hands dirty and he doesn't... It's showing very, very early on. He's not scared to actually get his hands bloody.
Well,
just
the
for
two
the
things
sake
that
of
happen in that
protecting
scene,
his house.
and it's why it's such a good scene, is that you've got Tywin's motivation is established straight out of the gate in the first scene he's in, which makes him a way more compelling character than other characters who I've talked about. And it also, without the dialogue, just with the way he's cutting apart that boar, kind of shows you a bit about his character and the way he approaches things.
Definitely.
And it also establishes a relationship with Jaime.
Yeah, it does, because it shows you just how much he's not happy with Jaime being a Kingsguard.
Well, it
Given
also
the
shows
Kingsguard
him
is celibate, in quotation marks.
he's one of the few people that can get the better of Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
And it also establishes his relationship with Tyrion because of the way that Jaime talks about Tyrion. It's like, oh, I didn't realise you go to war with the kingdom for my brother. And he's like, well, he's a Lannister.
He's still
he's
a Lannister.
The worst Lannister. But he's still a Lannister.
No, he literally says he is the lowest Lannister.
And explaining that explains his motivation. And that's why all of this works so well. Everything's doing like 2 or 3 different things.
This is why I think he's definitely my favourite villain out of all of the... Because some people might say Littlefinger or even some of the other characters over the Narrow Sea, but I think he's definitely... It's because of his motivation. Because you know what he wants. He just wants power for his house. He doesn't necessarily want the throne for himself. I mean, it's handy having the throne next to him.
Yeah.
But he just wants to keep his house alive.
Because I would say that was one of the things that really stood out in this episode, that you get a sense of people's motivations. Because Littlefinger very clearly says what he wants. Even though he sometimes acts contrary to that. Mm-hmm. And Tywin states very clearly what he wants, and even Cersei, and it's not as clear as direct, sort of addresses where she's coming from in life.
Yeah, I mean, she just wants to protect her children in the end, and I suppose her family, I guess. Although she probably doesn't have, at this stage, much love for Tyrion anyway. Which that lack of love grows exponentially as the series go on.
In fact, there's one character where they notably don't do that. And it's not per se a criticism, because I think it's maybe the point. But Ned.
Well, Ned does want something, and that's to go back to Winterfell and just be with his family and his wife. That's established quite early on. But above that, he wants to do the right thing.
He didn't have to go to King's Land, but he did. And he didn't have to send the letter to Stannis, but he did.
Well...
And he didn't have to try and stop Joffrey becoming king, but he did.
Well, in a way, he sort of did have to, because he is so relentlessly honor-bound that he will always go so far to try and do the right thing, even if it's not the thing he wants to do. If he really wanted to, he could have just stayed in Winterfell and just let King's Landing burn. But instead, he has tried to do the right thing, tried to help out Robert. He's tried to uncover all these secrets. He's trying to run the realm while Robert's away doing drunken hunting. And he will continue to try and protect the realm. He actually might have been an okay leader if he wasn't so hot-headed about trying to do the right thing. But
that was actually something I was going to talk about. It's like, does Renly have a point?
Renly has a very good point. Renly would have been a very good king, but that wouldn't make for very good storytelling. Having a good king on the throne.
Well, maybe and maybe not.
I don't think he would do
That's
very
not what
much.
the story's about, which is fair to say.
No, I guess not.
But what I really liked about this episode is, in the first scene with Ned, he's talking to Cersei, and Cersei talks about how he had a chance to take the throne and he didn't take it. And then throughout the episode, he has more chances to take the throne or put someone on the throne, and he repeatedly does not take them. And that's essentially what the story is about.
That's what that episode is about.
And that's what I mean about his lack of clear motivation, because it's more about him choosing not to do something rather than choosing to do something.
Well, I think that his lack of action is explained mostly by his complete distrust of everyone at King's Landing. He has to... Basically, everyone is saying, pick my side, pick my side, pick my side. Except Littlefinger, who is... He's kind of saying, pick my side. He's sort of saying, do this, because...
Well, he's saying pick Renly's side, interestingly.
He's saying pick Renly's side, but in a way that is still his side, because it's his... Basically, Littlefinger wants him to do what Littlefinger wants him to do. So in a way, that would mean siding with Littlefinger. And because Ned doesn't trust anybody in King's Landing, he feels like making a choice to decide with anyone is worse than trying to go it alone. Which I can kind of understand, given the nature of how everyone works and how everyone backstabs each other. And even just the scene between Varys and Littlefinger a few episodes ago proves just like, I don't want to take any... I don't want to be on either of those people's sides. I don't trust either of them. And Ned is kind of right not to trust any of them, because no matter what happens, no matter whose side he tries to fall in with, he even tried to get Littlefinger to fall a little bit in line with him and tried to get on his side a little bit. And Littlefinger still stabbed him in the back.
Yeah.
So he tried to play the game a little bit by bribing the
Which I thought was an interesting way of framing all that, because the reason that Littlefinger betrays him there, probably more than anything else, is because he hates him personally.
Yes.
There's literally nothing he can do about that.
There really isn't. I mean, well, there is something he could have done, and is let Littlefinger have her, but at the same time, her is in his wife.
That's not really something you do in medieval kingdoms.
It really, really isn't. He's not inclined to do that at all. So no matter what happens here, Ned is lost, and I think that is George R. R. Martin's point. It doesn't matter in this particular reality if your actions, if you do the right thing, if you feel like you're doing the right thing, in the end you're just going to get stabbed in the back by people who know the game better.
Well, that is the take that most people take on it, but I'm going to put a slightly contrary point to that.
Ooh.
Because Ned, in this episode, tries to stop the assassination of Dany, and he fails.
Quite miserably,
And,
yeah.
okay, the assassination fails as well, but the very fact that the assassination was attempted to happen is what motivates Khal Drogo to go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking the entire kingdom. And that is technically still an ongoing plot thread.
Yeah. Yeah, it very much is.
Because Dany's still bitter about that, for obvious reasons.
Of course.
And it's basically created this looming threat that never would have been there, maybe, if that hadn't happened. Like, say Ned had been successful in that scene in the small council and had convinced them not to assassinate Dany, there's a number of things that wouldn't have happened. One, Drogo might still be there in the sands, just doing nothing, because that's what he's doing at the start of this episode.
Yeah.
Therefore, Dany then probably wouldn't have ascended to power in the same way she did, certainly.
True.
Jorah wouldn't have got put in any sort of position of power, because he's just basically a knight for hire at the moment, not an advisor, which is where things go wrong for Jorah.
Yeah.
And all those things come about as a response to this negative act, and it's also what makes Dany hate the Seven Kingdoms, because she knows they're trying to kill her, and that suggests that good things would have come about from not being just a ruthless killer.
Yes, so basically that just proves that Ned was right in the end, no matter what all the others tried to say to justify killing Dany. That is the spark.
Because of cause and effect.
Yeah, it is a cause and effect. It's the thing that lights the fire over the narrow sea and gets Khal Drogo all worked up. And then, even though Khal Drogo doesn't make it, Dany still does, and she's, spoiler, she's still on her way to King's Landing with armies as we speak.
Think about all the major turns in this series, like throughout all the years. It's all about vengeance. Like, spoiler warning to the max. The Red Wedding happens because Robb wrongs Walder Frey.
Yes.
Now, he might have overreacted, but he did wrong him. Mm-hmm. Renly got killed by the smoke monster because, in Stannis' eyes, Renly wronged him. And also, in the eyes of that world, he did. Because the first brother should be the chosen king.
Yes, very true.
Stannis gets killed by Brienne because he killed Renly. Tywin gets killed by Theon because he fucked Shay, or whatever happened there.
Oh, you mean Tyrion? Yeah,
Yeah, Tyrion killed Tywin.
Because
To
of
someone
Shay,
else.
yeah. All the teas.
Joffrey got killed because he threatened Marjorie.
So basically...
It's all vengeance that causes these things.
Yep, and if people aren't motivated by vengeance, we might live in a peaceful society, maybe? But then there wouldn't be any drama and no TV show.
There's even more. The Viper only goes to the capital to get vengeance for his dead sister and her children.
Yep.
Which is said very explicitly in the scene where he dies.
Yep, I absolutely agree. It's all just about vengeance throughout the whole story.
Robb went to war with the Targaryens because of what they did to Lyanna.
So what you're saying is, vengeance bad?
Well, that's what George R. R. Martin said.
Okay, cool. Do we have anything else to cover in this episode?
I don't think so, but by the vast majority of the episode holds up. Just I would say that one scene with the online was completely unnecessary, didn't need to be there.
Yeah, as usual.
The story with Jon felt like a bit of a roadblock in his story, not like an actual proper development of it.
Fine.
But the story with Ned was perfect, and the story with Dany was actually quite good this week, and everything else that came into that via Tywin and the other parts of the story. Just it was all really well developed, and there was exposition there, but you almost didn't notice it because of how good it was.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week with episode 8. See you guys then. Bye-bye.